Mendoza, and this is another video, part of the Waves 2U video tutorial series. In this video, I'll show you how to assign roles for users and groups, which provides access rights to specific modules within the CMS. In a previous video, we reviewed how to create new users and groups. We talked about how new users can belong to an admin group, which provides full access to the entire CMS, or they can be placed as part of a user group, which strips them of all access. In the case of a latter, we'll need to assign whatever roles that user will need individually. That is handled through the roles module. But before we begin, let's see what a basic user experiences. So here I'm going to go over to our users and groups section, and we can do that quickly by using our dashboard scroller icon. And here we first land under managing our groups, so I can quickly toggle over managing our users. And here's a user we created, John Clyde, and here we can see that this user is part of the user group. Now I'm going to log off and log into the same system as John so we can see what John's experience is without any roles. So here we're going to put John's email in, and we're going to go in with his password. And on first look, everything pretty much looks the same. Of course, we see that we're logged in as John Clyde. But as we try to access different sections, we'll notice that we get a message that we cannot access this particular section and to contact our system administrator. Similarly, if we go down here, we see our pages, we try to edit one, we get a very similar message that we cannot edit this particular page. And that's again because this particular user coming in as the very basic user group cannot really do anything in the system until we begin assigning roles to that user. You can look at these roles as basically having access to particular sections, but then there's another layer beneath that called permissioning, which we'll get into it in another video, which will then go into the fine-tune aspects of those sections. For example, one role might be a website role, allowing John to be able to go and access web pages. But before he has specific rights to those web pages, he cannot do anything. So you really need a combination of roles and permissions to really act upon the system. Similarly, John may have access to the file manager role, but if he does not have rights to a particular file, he still cannot do much. But again, roles is the first layer that we need to handle. Before we log out as John and go into assign roles for John, I want to also show you that the CMS tree has very basic essence, really doesn't have anything for the basic user. Really, again, there's not much that I can do here. So we're going to log out as John, and we're going to go back in as our administrator account. And now we're going to begin to assign roles for John. So I'm going to go down here, and when I open up my security section, right around the same place where we have groups and users, I can click on the roles node, and that's going to take me to an interface where I can begin assigning roles for John the user. So there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, we can locate a particular user or group alphabetically, or we can search for them using the search field. Once we do that, we'll see those groups and users listed within the bin. And once we decide which user we want to assign this particular role to, we can either utilize this right arrow, or I can simply select and drag and drop this user into the selected groups and users bin. The next thing I want to do is decide which roles this user that's selected will receive. So now here on the left, I can begin selecting different items. For example, I may assign John to the file manager role. I may also allow John access to different web pages, so I'll assign him the websites role. And finally, we may want to also give John access to a couple others, such as tables, and maybe he's going to manage style sheets as well. And you'll notice as I'm selecting these items, they'll be selected here in the selected utilities bin. If at any point I want to remove one of these items, I can simply uncheck them, and that item will be removed from the selected utilities bin. Now keep in mind that we're assigning roles to John at this point. If I want, I can take, for example, my own user and also bring him over. So whatever roles we're assigning can be bulk assigned to multiple users. In this case, I'm just going to shift myself back over. Similarly, we can bring over a group. An entire group can have roles assigned, and that's really a good way of doing it, because if you assign roles to groups, then you could just place users within those groups and they'll automatically receive those roles through inheritance. But here we're going to just leave John in there. The final thing to decide is whether this user will have the roles or not. Of course, we're coming here to allow them, so we'll check mark allow. And it's going to ask me if I want to assign for the roles. If I was okay and done, I could click on cancel to go out. But I'm going to click on okay just to show you that when we're here, we can really select any user at any given point and see what roles they have by the A that's marked right next to it. Of course, that stands for allow. So you can see now when I select John, those roles that we just supplied to him are shown here. Now, if at any given point, let's say I wanted to decide that John shouldn't get the tables role, I can simply have the tables role selected. And this time, instead of having allow checked and making sure John is still selected, I can simply save this while allow is unchecked. And that's basically going to do the reverse action. It's going to remove the tables role from John's account. In this case, we'll leave it as is. And really, that's as far as the roles assignments go. Again, there's another layer of permissioning which we'll get to in another video, which will show how we can fine-tune and assign specific permissions such as read, edit, write, those sorts of access permissions to individual web pages and files. But in this case, we're just going to log out and we're going to log back in as John and see what's changed in his user view when he logs into the CMS. So here we are back in as John. For one, when I open up the Manage Content section, you'll see that now we can access the Style Sheet section, we can access the File Manager, I could open up Manage Websites. Now, since we didn't provide specific permissions to any web pages yet, you can see that we only see the Manage Websites role. We cannot actually access any of those web pages. Here within Databases, we can see that now we have access to the Table section. But again, same thing goes here. Until we assign permissions to those database tables, John cannot access them. So the next video is really going to show us how to go to that next layer of permissioning. But this video really sums up how we can assign particular roles so that users have access to certain modules within the CMS.